All right. We are back. It's Wednesday night. Hopefully, you guys are having a good week. We're going to run it down like we do every Monday and Wednesday over here on Facebook, Amazon. Jeez. Maybe one day. Maybe we'll get on Amazon Prime one day. Not yet, though. Right now, it's just Facebook, YouTube, and X. I don't have my stand with me, so no TikTok tonight. It's just going to be full focus over here on YouTube for you guys. We are out here in San Diego, different hotel room than Monday, because I had a lot of people questioning where I was, which is fine. A little bit better background this time. Beautiful sunset out here in San Diego going on. 7 p.m. It's a little different for me. I'm used to Central Standard Time. It's always 9 p.m. right now back home. Very dark at this point. So I actually may be able to go eat dinner after I get done with this, being over here on the West Coast. And I can see why you guys like the West Coast, people that live here that pay this much money. The weather is fantastic here in San Diego. Cool breeze, like 80 degrees, sunny. It was wonderful today. So I get it. If you live over here on the West Coast in California, I just can't justify it with the amount of taxes that you have to pay here and the cost of living. So you guys can have it. I'm headed back to Dallas tomorrow. But we will run through the macro and all the fun stuff before we get into the questions tonight. Lots of things happening out there in the market. Yesterday we had NASDAQ, or maybe it was the New York Stock Exchange. I can't remember which one now. Both have come out, and they are going to be tokenizing stocks here this year, both of those exchanges. There was a partnership announced with Securitize yesterday on the heels of the SEC and the CFTC kind of codifying or unifying their stance toward digital assets. You've also got the BIS coming out, and they've got 4 digital assets that they are going to be creating designations for. We've got Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and you guessed it, XRP, all of those on their radar to be able to determine what type of asset they are going to list them as. They've put the different derivatives and futures and spot in different categories that they will, be grading over whatever period of time. But as many of you know, for a long time, I've said that the BIS will come out and make XRP a tier 1 asset. Now, I don't know that the derivatives of XRP will be a tier 1 asset. So ETFs or futures or perps, I don't know that those will be riskless, but the asset itself, I do believe, will end up with a tier 1 designation. Same thing as US Treasuries and gold. So we're close. They are going to be working on that and finalizing those things in Q2 of this year, 2026. So we've got that. And then we've also got JP Morgan coming out creating a hedge against the debt that the FANG stocks have. They've created a bucket if you want to bet against the largest tech stocks that are out there. They have a product now where people can do that. They are funneling their investors into those things. That's a tell for me that maybe the market's going to take a downturn here. I've been saying that for a while with the reverse carry trade, still looming. We've still got oil continuing to hold where it's at or go higher depending on what currency it's priced in. The conflict in the Middle East is not dying down. Does not look like that's going to be ending anytime soon. Monday we had Trump come out and early that morning talk about, a ceasefire and that they were going to work through something over the next 5 days. That's been 2 days ago. I haven't heard anything as far as a resolution goes. So I'm still operating under the pretense that this will continue on. And with the Strait of Hormuz shut down, if we were to attack power plants, I'm sure that their recourse would be to completely shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And maybe that's the last straw that's going to break the camel's back. I don't know. But the Bank of Japan is going to have to move at some point in the near future. The Fed is also backed up against a wall. They're talking about raising interest rates to be able to offset the inflation in our economy that oil is causing. If they were to do that, that would not be good for credit markets, which are starting to freeze up. You've seen a lot of the large private credit funds halt withdrawals. there's going to be a lot of defaults and issues if the Fed does decide to raise interest rates. If they were to lower interest rates, we would see, again, more inflation in our economy. And with oil continuing to rise, that would weaken our dollar and oil would go much, much higher. You've got Larry Fink coming out talking about oil and basically moving into a global depression if we do continue to see oil over 100 and closer to 150. And that's, he did mention the Fed trying to potentially raise interest rates. If you are levered up, this is not a good time to be levered up. And again, this is why I think JP Morgan's rolling out their credit default swap product against the debt that Google and Amazon and many of the other large tech companies have taken onto their balance sheet over this period of time, because they know that if interest rates move higher, they won't be able to refinance those. That is good for people that would be holding U.S. Treasuries. U.S. Treasuries, those yields continue to rise. We've seen the 2-year and the 10-year close to 5%, which with where our current economy sits, I don't think is sustainable. Again, waiting for the Fed to lower interest rates. But if they know if they do that, we are going to see the reverse carry trade unwind, especially if Japan is backed into a corner and they're raising interest rates to offset inflation in their economy. So that's where we sit. We sit not a whole lot different position than we were Monday, but we do have things progressing as far as tokenization of real world assets, the adoption of this asset class, the BIS saying that they are going to regulate what these assets are for banks and institutions to hold them in Q2 of this year. You got the OCC coming out saying that as of April 1st, banks can hold crypto on their balance sheet. So as we make our way to the end of March here, I would expect some volatility if we see any action out of the Middle East. So with that, we'll jump into the questions. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday night, to come hang out with me and ask great questions. I always forget to say this, so I'm going to go ahead and give my disclaimer and then also ask, if you do find value in this, please like, subscribe, share. It does help the algorithm. And nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. The opinions expressed tonight are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners, which is our SEC registered RIA. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. We got Weird Kids TV. They say, you have stated in previous videos not to worry, start planning on business post price appreciation will happen. We will eventually get price appreciation. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see another outcome. Well, here's the other outcome. And I've said this before, but we're pretty much effed if they don't start implementing these technologies and back-end settlement to be able to de-risk their positions and then also increase the assets on their balance sheet to be able to offset the losses that they're going to have. Larry Fink is absolutely on point. We will move into a global depression. And that is where we're at in the cycle. If you've ever read The Fourth Turning or you've looked at macroeconomic cycles, most people experience two recessions and one depression in their lifetime. Boomers have never had a depression in their lifetime. They've had 2 recessions, but this would be the point in time where we would see a depression if that cycle were to continue. But again, I believe that they have a ace up their sleeve. It's XRP, and they will be able to, navigate their way out of this, and that will require XRP to be a much, much higher price. They say, how sure will the reverse carry trade it will play? Because I feel as Trump won't let it occur. There was a lot of people that also told me, the whole time I was calling for the Strait of Hormuz to get shut down, that Trump would never let that happen. He would never let oil prices escalate. They'll never fight them. And here we are. So look, I don't make the rules. I didn't make this game plan. I just listen to people that are smarter than me. I'm blessed to be in rooms to have conversations with people. I try to disseminate that information to you guys in a way that it's digestible and understandable. You can take it or leave it. Take it with a grain of salt. Again, I'm not the end all be all. I'm just some guy on the internet that has my theory. It should, I would take mine, but I would also look at a bunch of other people that are also intelligent and then come to your own conclusions on whether you feel like things that I've laid out will play out or not. The Christian Live channel. Very cool. They say, Super Jake, Beyond Broke Mastermind here. Awesome dude. Glad to have you in the community. I was driving through DFW last week and had a question for you. After price appreciation, will you be purchasing Legend Bank? God bless you and your family. Owning a bank probably wouldn't be a bad idea on the other side of this deal. Andy Beal is one of, there's a lot of billionaires in Texas. He's there in Dallas. Andy, if you want to go look him up, kind of similar to a corporate raider, but opportunistic. He always deploys capital when there's significant fire sales on things. If you want to call that, somebody that's shisty or dirty or anything, I don't really think so. Look, like it's capitalism. If somebody's willing to take less money because they're in a certain situation or over leveraged, and it helps them out, and you can sell it for more later on, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Again, capitalism. And Andy always has significant amounts of money in cash, similar to Uncle Warren, for when things get spicy. So I'm sure he is swimming in cash right now, waiting for things to play out. We'll probably be taking advantage of that. And he owns Beal Bank, like I said. So, if we continue at the rate that we are growing, and we do see the price appreciation, might not be out of the realm of possibility that we do acquire a bank. I don't know if it'll be Legend Bank or not, though. Real Doers says Jake Grok. Well, Grok said it, so it must be true. Said XRP is no longer the main rail. Stablecoins like RLUSD will take over. Banks may skip XRP, use stablecoins. Once king, now niche bridge gulp. I understand people's argument when they say stablecoins are going to be the bridge that people are going to send between counterparties. Makes sense. If both counterparties are okay with receiving that stablecoin and they trust the third party that is issuing that stablecoin, that is legitimate, and I think that RLUSD is great. It's probably the poster child for that. My counter argument is that banks and institutions would prefer to issue their own stablecoins and not use Ripple's, because the more money they give Ripple, the more treasuries Ripple's buying. They're not going to be able to pass on that yield to whoever's giving them money to use their stablecoin. So banks and institutions would rather use their own money to buy their own treasuries to generate the yield and launch their own stablecoin. And if JP Morgan is sending JPM coin to Citi, Citi doesn't want JPM coin. And you would just be exacerbating Nostro Vostro accounts. You would have to lock up a bunch of JPM coin over there at Citibank if you're, JP Morgan, in order to be able to settle with them. The whole point of this is to remove Nostro Vostro accounts. There's $27 trillion locked up in these accounts globally for SWIFT to be able to settle between counterparty banks that trust one another, where accounts are pre-funded. XRP removes the need to pre-fund accounts. And again, irrespective of stablecoin issuance, not everybody's going to want the same stablecoin. They're not all going to trust Ripple. And again, they have their own economic incentives for them to launch their own stablecoins. The other piece of that is when the reverse carry trade unwinds, we're going to need that demand for U.S. treasuries here domestically. That's the whole point of the Genius Bill, to be able to drive demand for U.S. treasuries here in the United States, to be able to soak up those treasuries as they flow back onto the market, to be able to stabilize the bond market. So, look, LLMs are great. Grok, Claude, AI, ChatGPT, you name it. I use them on a regular basis, but they are not the end-all, be-all. Similar with the internet. And again, I'm on the internet, so you can come to your own conclusions. I'm just giving you my opinion. The Real Doers says, just to be clear, XRP fan, concerned about stables. Okay, so you're just clarifying. Yeah, like again, that would be my rebuttal to that argument, is what I just went through there. And again, I don't make an opinion on anything unless I can argue both sides. So, and you guys will ask me questions on here. You see me all the time. If I don't know about it, I'm like, don't know, can't comment. I give you what it could or could not be. And then I'm like, I'd have to go research to have any discernment which of those outcomes it is, if it's not something I absolutely know about. Angus says, cheers. Cheers to you, brother. Appreciate you. I don't have my tea tonight because I'm away from my tea lady, but I do have a Celsius to keep me awake and alert so that I can answer all these questions for you guys. So I don't know if you have a beer or an old fashioned or what you got, but cheers. Sona, they say, I am a U.S. citizen selling my paid off home, moving to Brazil in 1 to 2 years, and using 1/3 of my house proceeds to buy XRP. I have 50K XRP. Any onboarding issues? Can you do the trade? Yeah, we can absolutely do that. If you want to become a client with Digital Wealth Partners, you can send them fresh cash. We're about to build out a dollar cost averaging deal, just to make sure you're getting the best price over whatever duration. Arch Public is working on that with us. They have great technology to be able to track, what the low points in the market are going to be. Their average entry in February was like $1.36 or $1.37 on XRP. So doing pretty good. But yeah, if you already have 50,000 XRP and you have some additional cash that you would like to purchase XRP with, we do have the lowest cost of any trades over there at Digital Wealth Partners. We're 20 basis points with no spread. So irrespective of the amount that you're buying, if you are a Digital Wealth Partners client, that is the cost to be able to issue a trade and purchase more XRP or really any other digital asset that Anchorage has access to. We are rolling out an app with Uphold. The trading fee on that will be higher. Not a whole lot, closer to 1%. We've negotiated fees down with them to be able to pass those savings on to you guys. So, as we have more news on that, you guys will hear about it here first, I'm sure. And those that already have LLCs and other products with us, you will be getting an email in the next couple of weeks to be able to onboard to that app. We got Lathrop. They say, how do you know price appreciation before the Clarity Act? Can it pass without price appreciation? Look, these are all educated guesses that I give you guys. Now, I would say my batting average is pretty good at this point. I do still think that we're going to see a BlackRock ETF, which we have some rumors about, according to certain X accounts out there. Again, same thing with the BIS, now regulating these digital assets is something and giving them clarification here in Q2. I said that the Clarity Act would get pushed to 2026. That happened as well. I said that they would pass the Genius Act. Sure enough, they did. Now, my call at the end of the year last year for $100 XRP, I missed that one, right? I'm off on timeframes, but the macroeconomic events that I've been talking about for 2 years are playing out. And with the CFTC and the SEC coming together to be able to regulate this technology and these assets and defining 16 of those assets as commodities in the recent release of the joint statement that they made, gives me full conviction that we don't need a Clarity Act in order to get this across the line. And XRP, again, like I've stated many times, already has full clarity from the lawsuit between Ripple and the SEC. So it being positioned as a commodity, it having a futures market, it having a DAT launching in the near future with Evernorth, banks being able to hold these assets on their balance sheet, all of that's lining up for me to be right about price appreciation before the Clarity Act also. If they don't get the Clarity Act passed here in the next 30 days or so, I don't know that you're going to see it this year. Most of the politicians are going to be focused on midterms. After that, I don't know that we're going to get a whole lot of legislation passed in general. And without that across the line, the only downside would be the next president or next administration would be able to kind of coerce the CFTC and the SEC to change their opinions on things. But if we have the implementation of these networks and protocols at scale, they will become too systemically important to be able to remove by the next administration. So with both of those regulatory bodies coming together, I feel like we're full steam ahead here. I don't see any opposition to going ahead and driving the price higher to start using it before the Clarity Act gets passed. And there's a lot of other people out there that think differently than me. You should listen to them too. They're all smart people. Again, I just have discernment that that's going to be the case because of many things that I've been exposed to or conversations that I've had. And again, I try to share what I can with you guys. And again, you make your own decisions at the end of the day. All right. Chris, my man, he says, Jake, if XRP is mature, 20% cap equals restructuring, can escrow XRP count as bank capital? High oil, bond yields high. What's next? Thank you. I went over a lot of this at the beginning, but if we do see the Clarity Act passed, Ripple will have 12 months to be able to, move things around. Some people are talking about a blind trust that they're going to use. I don't give any credence to that. They have over 1,700 NDAs. Greg Kidd, who was like the 4th or 5th employee at Ripple, had an option to buy XRP, 1 billion XRP at 0.03 of a penny. I think he forewent that option, but I think that that's how a lot of the negotiations were done early on for the XRP. That banks and institutions have the option to buy a certain amount at a certain price. And I think depending on the escrow release and how things work out, if those aren't just time-locked escrows and they may be predicated on something else, they could distribute that XRP to those contracts in a much faster cadence than we are currently aware of. So we'll have to see. Ripple has tons of wallets that they use for that escrow to be able to control that supply. And they could, move those wallets to other counterparties' ownership as well for the distribution of their escrow. But again, they'll have 12 months to do that on the other side of the Clarity Act if and when that gets passed. Jake Real says, I reside in San Diego. Would love to meet you. I am in downtown, and I'm only here for tonight. I'm probably going to go eat after the podcast here or after the live, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and I will wake up early tomorrow, have a call with another, I won't say who, another content creator for a potential collab. So excited about that. Shout out to him if he's watching. And then I hop on a plane and head back to Dallas. So here for a short stint, just a couple days, and then back home. Provident Exodus says, could future restrictions on retail buying XRP affect programs like crypto cashback rewards or growth funds that enable further XRP accumulation? It's a good question. So I think that institutional products will always have access to XRP through the DEX or other OTC desks or dark pools on the other side of price appreciation. I don't know that retail on exchanges will have much access because I think the exchanges will need the XRP themselves to be able to facilitate transactions, especially if we see Tether implications. The other thing that's happened here recently, and I'm glad you said this, is Tether is going to be audited by a top 4 audit firm. So maybe a KPMG or Deloitte, not sure who it's going to be, but excited to see that audit actually taking place. Hopefully they've got it all squared up. Hopefully there's no issues. But I tend to think that there might be some issues. So I don't know if that will play into the issues that Tether, I think, will inevitably have. And this is USDT that I'm talking about, not USAT, their US compliant stablecoin, or Tether Gold. This is USDT specifically that I'm discussing, which is the majority of the liquidity available on the market for crypto and the exchanges. So if there's a situation where there's a liquidity crisis with Tether, Shane Ellis actually had created this theory a long time ago about Bitfinex going illiquid and having to rely on XRP to be able to settle their transactions and trades. And just the demand on that would push XRP to $500 based on his calculations. So I think that could definitely play out. And when it does, we will see a much higher price, but it absolutely will affect your ability to get XRP. As far as cashback or rewards, if it's 4%, I think that you'll still be able to get that back from financial institutions. It's something that we're looking at for our application and our white label solution from Uphold with the partnership with them. Their rewards and everything end on the 31st of this month. Weird timing on that when banks are going to be able to hold XRP April 1. Wonder what that's going to look like. So anyway, the growth fund should still continue to perform. They trade perpetual futures on XRP. And we actually, because of the amount of XRP we're putting to work with them, they can make markets in some categories. And I think that there will be a point in the future where they're not perps or perpetual futures, where you'll be able to take delivery of the underlying asset in that contract. So we should be able to continue to aggregate XRP in the growth fund. Oilfield Broke says, appreciate you always starting on time. Do you have any other updates or theories if Elon's X money going to involve XRP? Thank you. So they are using Cross River Bank. Uphold also uses Cross River Bank. Ripple has been partnered with Cross River for a long time. Is there a connection there to XRP? I've shared this with you guys before, but I will say it again. There's a lady that I know that knows Elon that was at dinner with him many years ago. And in conversations, he mentioned, buying XRP and Doge a long time ago. So for him to share that with her and then her to share it with me, again, take it with a grain of salt. She could be completely lying to me. I've done background check and I think she's legit, but like I said, take it with a grain of salt. But Doge, I think, will absolutely be involved in some capacity for X payments over there. I think XRP and Solana could also be involved. You need some redundancies on the networks that you're using to be able to settle transactions in case there's less liquidity or longer time frame or more cost. John Wingate has talked about this, a couple different times. If you haven't watched Ray Fuentes's videos from the last meetup at ETH Denver, I would encourage you to go do that on his channel. Shout out to Ray. Love you mucho. He does a good job. And John was nice enough to share a lot of things about what he's doing at Bank Social that involve those different payment rails there at that event. Woody says, legend. Thank you in the tea lady for your balance. Put on your tinfoil hat if you need, but I think the gift from Iran to Trump is the Strait of Hormuz. Your thoughts? If there's a gift being given, possibly. Like I've said before, I think the damage is done with the Strait of Hormuz. I think that we've already seen enough carnage on oil, and it's gone on long enough that they are going to have to act at some point in the near future. And I think on the other side of them having to act, we'll see this finalized fairly quickly after that, because there'll be a lot of other things to focus on. And it levels the playing field. The petrodollar is going to be gone. You won't need dollars to purchase oil. They'll be able to sell to other countries in whatever currency they have. This could be our last, ditch effort to maintain, the petrodollar. I think the petrodollar is already pretty much done. And but if Trump were to be able to control that strait, maybe the petrodollar could persist through those means. It's not something that I considered, but I do think, we probably will take over that region. If I was Trump and I was negotiating with Xi and Putin, I would say, hey, look, these are the two things I want. You guys want Taiwan and Ukraine, respectively. I won't fight you to take those if you don't fight me to take these other two. And Venezuela and the Strait of Hormuz would be two very strategic oil jurisdictions and places that the U.S. would be involved and control. And again, Russia might end up with Ukraine, and China might end up with Taiwan. We'll see if it goes that way or not. But I think if, at a high level for those negotiations, that makes a lot of sense. Captain Beyond says, sup, Dalai Lama of Dallas and the tea lady. Opinion on Mikkel's comment yesterday about the caution of investing in Evernorth. Thanks for your persistence. Again, I've said this before. Evernorth is a leveraged play. So if you do have an allocation over there on the stock market, whether that's in a solo 401k or a self-directed IRA or some other way that you're making an allocation to equities, if you have a high risk tolerance and longer time horizon, probably a good play. If you don't like leverage and you're a bit more conservative, probably holding the bearer asset is the way to go. If you're okay with paying some fees and you have a qualified account and you don't want the risk of a DAT because it could trade below MNAV, then you'd probably allocate to an ETF, right? And again, none of this is financial advice. You should probably go speak to Mikkel Connor, who is a financial advisor for our team, or one of the other 27 advisors that we have over there in the group. And they can help you make those decisions, what percentage of your income or net worth should be allocated across those different opportunities. I'm just, explaining that it is a higher risk investment than XRP itself. But I don't think that they would be doing it. I don't think David Schwartz would be involved with it if it wasn't going to be something profitable. However, I would say also, David also sold, 40,000 Ethereum to put solar panels on his roof at $1. Probably not great there. He was also involved with PolySign, which also didn't work out. And now he's getting involved with Evernorth. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I hope that this one works out and he crushes it and he has a ton of stock and makes a ton of money on Evernorth. Excited for Ashish and what they're doing over there, allocating to DeFi protocols and helping to build out the ecosystem. I think that it's much needed. I'm hopeful that they will be very successful. But again, it is a riskier play than allocating directly to XRP. Big Dog says, "Love you, Jake. Love you too, man. Appreciate the support. I was going to open an LLC in the next 3 weeks. Should I wait for the app and not work with Laughlin to make it more smooth?" So we're already doing the LLCs ourselves. If you file an LLC, we already have that. We're spinning that up. The corporate veil service and the trusts that we were working with Laughlin on will be migrated over the next 2-3 weeks here. So if you want to go ahead and file the LLC, you're more than welcome to do that. It is us filing it. We will have that information. We're still going to pass it to you. Operating agreement, EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, banking memorandum. But you will be able to get a bank account at Uphold there in the next couple of weeks, which will be great, which will be inside the app, the Digital Ascension Group app. And you'll have access to all the other opportunities that exist there, along with trading different crypto. And you could go ahead and do it and just know that, you'll get a code here in the near future to be able to upload everything to the app and start working through that. I did talk to the CEO. Well, actually not the CEO, but the owner over there at Laughlin today. He's here at the event with me. And I'll talk a little bit about the event. So shout out to Greg. He hosts this mastermind called Secret Knock. It's kind of like the speakeasy of masterminds. I was blown away with the decor that they had. I'll show you guys a little picture of what it looked like inside there. So this is, I don't know if y'all can see that or not. There's a reflection on the screen, but that's what the inside. They had a big ball there in the middle that hung down like a chandelier or a disco ball that said Secret Knock on it. They had a lot of good speakers. Tim Story. They had the CEO of Rich Dad Poor Dad. She was there and spoke. Many other prolific artists, songwriters, authors. They had the guy, I can't think of this gentleman's name, but he did the experiments with DMT and the lasers. There was another guy that was on before me that was talking about privacy and how you can protect yourself from, Big Brother and the tech companies. A couple sites that he mentioned that are probably interesting for y'all to go check out. I will say them here. He talks about what type of phone and different devices he uses in order to be able to maintain data security. If you're into that, you can go to myprivacytips.com. And he's got an article on there about, how he protects himself. And then the other thing, if you want to look at what's going on out there in the world and how Google and all these large companies are exploiting your data, you can go to americasdigitalshield.com. He shared both of those in his talk. That's Americas with an S, digitalshield.com. pretty shocking stuff on there. So anyway, a lot of other great people here. Blessed and grateful to, have the opportunity to come speak in front of the crowd and share my knowledge and expertise. Shout out to Greg at Secret Knock. Appreciate him. He is the head of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which was really cool. Also, if you guys don't know who Napoleon Hill is, he wrote Think and Grow Rich, one of the best books that I've ever read, and has made a huge impact on my life. So excited to be here with them. And again, appreciate the opportunity. All right, what else we got for super chats? We got Lazy Bones. He says, "Hey Jake, it's gonna happen, Haas. We all appreciate your conviction and steadfast lead regarding XRP. Can we get a front double bicep so we can screenshot for the haters after price appreciation?" Give it to you, my man. Appreciate that. They're not what they used to be, and I'm in the dress shirt tonight after I spoke, but hopefully you can take that one to the bank here in the near future. We got Nico. He says, would be nice to see an interview with Dr. Jim Willie on the channel. He sure likes some tinfoil hat talk. Haha. He also agrees with your theory, I believe. Yeah, Jim's been a supporter for a long time. Appreciate him. The few times that somebody has asked about me, he's always been kind. Again, I've said this for a long time. We got too many people against us to be hating on one another. I think that all the XRP content creators are awesome. I think that they've helped a lot of people over the years, and they continue to, talk about this asset and how it'll be involved and what it's going to look like in the future, and continue to give people hope. Even when it hasn't looked so great, during the lawsuit and many other times. Right now, fundamentals are at an all-time high, and for the price to be where it is, I think that there's a huge gap in opportunity. But again, not financial advice. Make your own decisions. I can't tell you what to do, but I continue to buy at the current levels. So again, shout out to Jim Willie. If you guys don't follow him, go check out his channel. He definitely does love the tinfoil hat. And I tend to agree with a lot of the tinfoil hat stuff. Cody, Mr. Alvarez, he says, "Hey Jake, it's getting hard to hang on and be patient with all this stuff. Feels like a crazy roller coaster." You're telling me, my man. I've been here 6 years. There's been people there are a lot of people that have been here longer than that. They've been here since 2017. Obviously, they're up a lot if they were here in 2017. But irrespective, he says, "How certain do you feel that either Q2 or Q3 of this year XRP hits 4 digits?" Thank you. Again, my lawyers have told me to stay away from timeframes. So full disclosure, I won't be commenting on what quarter it's going to happen in. I'm just going to continue to point to the events. So everything still looks on track that things could move quickly for the reverse carry trade and all of the domino theory that I've been talking about for 2 years. And that could be tomorrow. It could also take much longer. It all just depends on when they're ready to pull the trigger on this thing. Because it's going to be a timing deal. And if they do it too soon, like as an example, if they let the reverse carry trade unwind in August of 2024, we would have been in a global depression and collapse because the bond market would have crumbled. If we had that many treasuries flow back to the US with no demand here, and we had to print the money to buy them, either the Fed or the Treasury, we would be in hyperinflation. Our economy would collapse. You have to have all these little things in place to be able to pull this off and get us out of this death spiral. And unfortunately, there are things, little nitpicky things, that I don't even know all the things. Okay, I'm not the end all be all. I have the big picture of what's going to happen, but there needs to be assurances and things in place before they can pull the pin on this deal. So whether that's Q2, Q3, Q4, I'm just going to circle back to what Monica Long said this year at XRP Community Day, and she shared that XRP will see full-scale institutional adoption here in 2026. So if that doesn't give you enough confidence that it's this year, I don't know what to tell you. For them to say that, I've never heard Ripple come out and say that ever before. I've been to Swell the last 3 years. They've never said that at Swell. They've been confident about things, but they've been continuing to make acquisitions and position themselves. For her to come out and say that and be the president of Ripple, gives me a lot of confidence to say that XRP is going to be a significantly higher price in order to be able to fulfill on that here this year in 2026. John Jag says most of the 300 plus banks RippleNet uses Ripple's messaging and tracking tools rather than XRP itself for settlement. There is plenty of XRP to settle. Sure. I would agree with everything you said there. The only difference I would say from that is just because they're not using it today doesn't mean that they won't use it tomorrow. If it becomes faster and cheaper for them to be able to execute payments, if it becomes regulated where they can hold it on their balance sheet and it's a high stable value, banks and institutions are capitalists. They are going to do whatever is in the best interest of their shareholders and their profits. And for them to be able to reduce cost and frictions and latency and settle more payments at scale, they're going to take every opportunity they get. And if their competitors do it before them, they're basically going to be forced to do it. So it's only going to take two banks deciding that they want to, push the red button and lower their walls and start using XRP and settling over the mainnet in that asset. And then everybody else is going to follow suit very quickly. Because if they don't, they will be disintermediated and they will lose market share. So, it's operating in the way that it is until it's not. Brad Jack says, Jake, sir, good evening. I'm wondering, did you get a chance to talk to John over at BSL regarding his token? Bank Social, I'm assuming, is what you're talking about. It seems your company uses them already. Once the smoke clears, do you see them having a role in the space? So John's got a ton of traction with Bank Social for credit unions. That's the main target demographic that they have and have already implemented stuff with. Actually have, I have an account at the Credit Union of Texas. And you can log into the app right there and buy crypto in that app. And they have significantly improved the settlement of payments and the latency and everything else that's going on over there at Credit Union of Texas. If you listen to John, again, like I talked, about him just recently being over there on Ray's panel there in Denver, he talked about using XRP, XLM, HBAR, and Solana, all of those networks to settle transactions inside their ecosystem. They need redundancy in case one of those payment methods fails. So their token itself is currently a governance token. And the way that that's going to work, when I talked, I office in the same building as them. And I ran into one of their employees not that long ago, and we talked about their token. I asked her specifically about it. It's basically going to end up being a governance token for the DAO that they create for the credit unions. Credit unions make a lot of sense that they would operate as a co-op, which they are. And, a DAO infrastructure makes a lot of sense for that. So I do think it'll be a governance token. Is it a good, potential buy? Sure. Probably the same as like Wormhole or Chainlink or, some of these infrastructure tokens that are out there. If you believe that they're going to be used and adopted and they're going to be paying fees to be able to participate in certain ecosystems and there's going to be demand for that token, sure. I still think that these exist in a few, networks that they're settling. I think that those will have the highest volume and demand. But there's definitely going to be other tokens. I think there'll be somewhere between 70 and 90 tokens after everything gets consolidated that'll be around and used. Truth of Hearts, KT Baby, how are you, ma'am? She says, explain the 20% Ripple would have to restructure with the Clarity Act and thoughts on BlackRock ETF this week. Any other goodies? So we'll take those one at a time. In the Clarity Act, it states that no one company or counterparty can control more than 20% of the total token supply of any given protocol or network. Ripple currently maintains an escrow of 46% of the total supply of XRP. They also have another in 2024, it was 4.8 billion XRP. It may be old in ODL or for ODL. I would assume that it would be because they're being paid interest, and when they swap that back at Uphold, they're getting more. So I would bet that they're probably closer to 6 billion XRP that Ripple holds to manage their business with. They would not be able to control more than 20% of the total supply. So that's 20 billion XRP that Ripple, at a maximum would be able to manage. They will have to distribute that in some capacity, whether that's, as a donation to the US government or the IMF, or a distribution to all the different, financial institutions that have options on that escrow. I don't know which one of those is going to be, but I think that those will be the means by which they make that reduction in the amount that they control. But at that point, it'll be globally adopted, and they would have accomplished what they're looking to do, and the valuation of that company is going to be astronomical. So they won't need the whole escrow anymore. And then separate of that, you asked about the BlackRock ETF. There's a few accounts out there on Twitter that are right sometimes about things, that have come out and said that they believe that, they're hearing rumblings or rumors that this week we will see a BlackRock ETF. Maybe. Steve at Canary Capital believes that's going to be Q4 of this year. So I think it would take some catalysts and some things moving for them to go ahead and roll that. But that's not to say that that's not possible. And if I had any other, fun goodies, I will share those in the mastermind, which you are, a member of. I'm not going to share them here on a public forum. So on that, if you guys do want, a little bit extra things that I don't share here publicly, you can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke. It's right here at the top, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 at any level there in the mastermind. We would love for you to come check it out. And we will be locking that down on the other side of price appreciation. On the other side of a $10 XRP, it will be invite only, and the cost to participate in that group will be significantly higher. We got Inform and 1, 2801. They say, rest easy out there tonight, Jake. I cut through Denton on my way to Hazlitt. All is well, buddy. Awesome, dude. Sounds like you're a native Texan. Appreciate the shout out, and hope you made it home safe. We've got Gucolin. They say, any details on the mastermind speech to the tech bros? Mastermind speech to the tech bros. I'm assuming maybe you're talking about what I was here for. So again, Secret Knock, the ton of different, it's a very eclectic group of people that are here that are from all different walks of life, whether those are celebrities or people that have prolific careers in different areas. A lot of very interesting conversations with many different interesting people. I got fitted for a custom suit today by one of the gentlemen that's here that's a ghostwriter also. Lots of cool stuff. Basically, they asked me about our business, what we do, XRP. We talked about that and why, I'm bullish on it. People seem to resonate with it. People were engaged, at least. Nobody was falling asleep while I was up there on stage, which was nice. But yeah, enjoy doing these, coming to different events and speaking with people. And it's always nice to meet other people. Actually, I'm going to share something with you guys that happened to me this week. I shared it with Carbon 2 earlier in the week. You guys know I talk about my faith. I don't make it my platform. But sometimes God or the universe just gives you a wink that you're in the right place doing the right thing. Tuesday morning, I'm walking over to the conference, and this guy drives by and he waves at me. And I wave back because I'm like, well, maybe he knows me from social media or whatever. And I'm just happy to say hi to people in the morning. And I go about my day. I go to the conference, and I had to leave a little bit early because I had some work to do. I had to get back to the hotel. So I get back to the hotel, and my hip's been bugging me for a while. I hadn't been to the chiropractor in a long time, 6, 7 years since I've been to the chiropractor. And I thought, you know what? I got a little time today. I'm not in a rush. I'll call around over here and see if I can get in somewhere. So I look up the closest chiropractor, and I call them. They have an appointment at 3:00. Walk over there. The chiropractor is the guy in the truck that waved at me. And he was listening to my Monday Night Live driving into work. He's a very large amount of XRP. And he shared, what he wants to do to be able to help people with the XRP once it goes up. Just like the synchronicities. And anyway, I felt really blessed. And again, like super humbled, and just kind of like the universe was like giving me the nod that I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing to help the people that I'm supposed to be helping. So anyway, cool thing that happened to me this week. Figured I would share it with you guys on here. And, I don't know if anything like that's ever happened to you in your life, where just right place, right time, right thing. But, I've been praying about it, and again, just feel super blessed. Big Mike from the DFW, he says, "Good evening, sir. Looking forward to next week." Me too. It'd be awesome to see you down there in Austin. He says, "Wife has to work, so unfortunately she won't be joining. Have a good one. Say hello to the tea lady." Thank you, sir. Like I said, looking forward to seeing you down there in Austin for our Carbon 3 event. That's going to be a really good dinner, and should have close to 100 people attending that one. We got Nash Vegas. He says, "Thanks for coming to Nashville a couple weeks ago. Appreciate it. Can you quickly break down the current Clarity Act status? Seems to be bank driven. Why do they even have a say in it?" Laugh out loud, we know. Back to the Nashville event. I really enjoyed that. Got to meet a lot of new people that are out there on the East Coast that we normally don't get there in Dallas. We had 500 to 600 people there at that event. Appreciate everybody that came out to that. I think you guys got to meet a lot of cool people in your neck of the woods that, resonate on the same frequency that you do, and should be able to, create a lot of friendships and business partnerships and other cool stuff for post-price appreciation to go do stuff with cool people. As far as the Clarity Act goes, there's back and forth out there. Patrick Witt came out today and said there's a lot of FUD and that it'll be, moving through soon. He said by Easter was his guesstimate earlier this year. Brad Garlinghouse is saying by the end of April, he's expecting that to close. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I don't know that they're going to be able to come to a resolution. I think if they do pass a bill, it's going to be a skinny bill. I've talked about DeFi and yield and other things being stripped out of it. That's kind of that I think is going to be made. But I do think that there's a path forward that the banks and the other people have agreed on at this point for the yield on stablecoins. And I think that gives them the green light to be able to start issuing stablecoins. And I think that was kind of the last thing we were waiting on for the reverse carry trade to unwind, because they need clarity on to be able to issue those stablecoins and drive demand for treasuries. So I think we've got it. I don't think we need the Clarity Act to pass in order for that, or maybe they'll ram it through. If we do see a catastrophe happen, they're very good at doing that. We saw that during COVID. So just have to see how it plays out. But I think it's all about the timing, not necessarily, somebody say so or over somebody else's. Ashley Ryan, she says, "Hey Jake, UK here, finishing work. It is late for you, ma'am. Thank you for taking out the time in your evening to watch this. Or early, however you want to look at it." She says she has a flat tire. Oh no. Somebody needs to help you out. She said, "Need price appreciation to repair it. Because of you, I got into XRP so big. Thank you. Thanks to you. I hope we get price appreciation soon so we can enjoy a stress-free ride." Me too, ma'am. Appreciate the super chat. You should have put that $10 toward the tire. I think a tire is going to be the least of your worries, in the not too distant future after we do see the adoption of this asset at scale. Still looking for that BlackRock ETF to drive, price and demand. We're not seeing a ton of volume on the ETFs this week or the last couple of weeks, really. I think the biggest day has been around 20 million. We did have some 50 million days, toward the end of last year and earlier this year, but we haven't seen that continue. And that signal tells me that there's probably not as much available on the OTC desk in the dark pools. So that's a good thing for the supply shock. And I do think that we're going to see that in the not too distant future. Mr. Johnson. I don't know if you're the Rick Johnson that's also the young guy or not over there on Twitter, but I really do appreciate the super chats and the banter. He says, flex. Let's say the reverse carry trade happens. Okay, it's going to. When XRP jumps to $75 because of this, once the reverse carry trade is done, how does XRP remain high and even get higher than you on your hash? Please explain. Be real. So once there's enough liquidity in XRP, the banks and institutions will start settling through it. Until there's enough liquidity in XRP, they can't use it. They're also not going to hold it because it's not a stable value. They need it to be pretty stable. It doesn't have to be specifically like fixed, because if it's fixed, it's not going to be dynamic enough to be able to absorb, new markets and liquidity as required in order to be able to adopt it in other use cases. So we need it to be somewhat dynamic and flexible, but if it's a high enough value, it'll be fairly stable. And then once there's enough volume moving over the network, it would maintain that high stable price. So we need the supply shock to drive it to a high price. And then once we have the volume moving over the network, that'll maintain that high price and continue to escalate it over time. At least that's my thesis. Work hard, play harder. Says, thanks, Jake, for all that you do for us. If you were to make another bet for 750, what timeline would that be on? I'm not going to do that because that got me on people's poop list. But, I'd feel pretty confident by the end of the year this year. I don't know if scams would be up for a double or nothing on that. I don't know that I would even take it with scams. The whole point of that bet was to get people their XRP back, which did happen, by the way. He did return all the XRP that he had won from other people in bets back to them, which was my contingency on taking that bet. So again, I've been very blessed in my life. I've got enough XRP that I can bet it and be okay if I, lose it to scams. But there's a lot of people that he's taken XRP from out there that he's given back to now, which is awesome. That, maybe didn't have as much XRP. And for them, that might be a lot of XRP that they lost in that bet. So I just wanted an opportunity to get those people their XRP back. If he's taken bets since then and taken some more XRP, maybe we would make another bet on 750 by the end of this year. But, with Monica Long coming out saying that they'll see full-scale institutional adoption here in 2026, I don't know if he would even take me up on that. We'll see. Rick Johnson, again, he says your max bench press weight 3 times at your peak and today. So I don't ever max on bench press, especially flat. That is the fastest way to get a tech pair, a pec tear. I've seen more people tear their pec on flat, bench press than anything else with the bar. I tend to use dumbbells if I'm training or working out. I will also do incline bench press. The most I ever did on incline when I was 260 pounds at about 8% body fat was 325 for 20 on incline. I was juiced up and having a lot of fun. Definitely can't do that now. If I was going to try to get 3 now, I wouldn't even do it because it's not worth the risk of getting injured. When I work out, I normally do if it's flat bench, I'll do 225 for 20 to 25 reps for 4 or 5 sets. So I don't know what that equates to for 3 rep max. I would expect that, every once in a while I'll play with 315 and I can get 10 or 12 with 315. So I don't know. If I tried it and I trained for it, I could probably do 405 for 3. Maybe would be my guess. And if I had a bench suit and I'm using elbow sleeves, I could get more than that, but that's raw, no help. Hey, RJ, good to see you, dude. He says, I don't understand why the reverse carry trade hasn't played out yet at this point. Japan has to be on fire. They claim their price cap, their cap price, but I don't think that's possible. Thoughts on golf soon? It's been too long. We need to go play golf, dude. Yeah, I'll ping you. I got some new clubs and I'm hitting it fairly far. And I'm trying to get better. I've been practicing. I actually went and hit a bunch of wedge shots Monday last week for a couple hours, worked on my short game. So trying to get back. The 3 rounds I've shot selfishly because I don't want to have to sell my assets. And then 2, if we can create solutions for everybody, that just serves the broader community and make sure that I can give back, right? Like this, you guys, if we didn't have fantastic clients and people that wanted to work with us and participate in the solutions and products that we brought to market, none of this matters. So shout out to you guys for the continued support and taking the time out to watch these and working with our companies in order to be able to manage your own digital assets and make sure that, you know, multiple generations are going to get the benefit of what you're doing today. James says, if Tether does have problems and exchanges have issues, will XRP in Uphold Vault be okay or lost? It'll be fine. It's a cold wallet. It's not going anywhere. Since the stream cut out, I didn't answer this other question. So, actually I talked about the XRP and Bitcoin chart, but I didn't really talk about the decoupling. So there's been a couple times in the past where XRP has risen significantly a bit against Bitcoin in a very short period of time. You could consider that a decoupling. When XRP is not moving at the same, or close to the same trade as Bitcoin, that would be what decoupling is. It doesn't need to decouple first in order to see price appreciation. Price appreciation of XRP and the supply shock would cause it to decouple from Bitcoin. So I think you have those things swapped. Rick Johnson. We talked about that. Thank you again, RJ. Looking forward to the golf. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and we're going to work our way back up. Tim was nice enough to post a mastermind code here, so I'll share it with you guys. If you like this, if you want more information, if you want to hear the stuff that I don't share here publicly, you can go check out the mastermind. It's at beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. And again, we will be shutting that down. We will be taking invite-only members post-price appreciation. Professor says, if assets like XRP are global, does U.S. regulation really matter? Or can we still earn yield through platforms in other countries? If you are a U.S. resident, you are under U.S. law. Now, can you use a VPN and go outside of that and broadcast your IP address to the Netherlands or Ukraine or somewhere else and then participate in other DeFi protocols? Sure. You are opening those protocols up to lawsuits by the SEC. Because you are a U.S. citizen, there are certain disclosures and requirements for securities that are required to be able to offer those products and solutions to you. Whether you agree with that or not, I'm not here to debate that. I'm just talking about the actual laws that exist. You're actually compromising their ability to provide those things. If enough people from the U.S. are doing that and it's found out by the SEC and they are allowing those people to participate on their platform and not removing them, it would open them up to a lawsuit by the SEC for non-disclosure and other issues. That's why we've taken the position that, DeFi products and ways to generate returns on these assets are securities, which is, again, kind of what was stated there in the joint statement by the CFTC and the SEC. The underlying assets themselves, not securities, they're commodities. But any contracts that stipulate that somebody else is going to be paying you returns based on their efforts and you putting up the capital or the asset, that meets all the prongs of the Howey test, and it is a security. So, if you're participating in Flare, if you're participating in Doppler Finance, if you're participating in Midas over there on Axelar, they have geofenced the U.S. I've talked to all of them. You're not supposed to be doing that. And you are opening them up to potential lawsuits by the SEC. So please don't do that. I know a lot of people that are. And again, they can't really stop you because they can geofence IP addresses from the US, but they can't geofence VPNs if you're going to broadcast that somewhere else. So, I would hope that you would want the disclosures and understand the risk associated with stuff. I do think that all of that will be rolled out here in the US and you'll have the capability to participate in those things. But if you are a US citizen, you are subject to the SEC's purview and protections. Messed up. You guys did good. Oh, because I froze. Woody Woods, Carbon 2, awesome dude. Glad to see you here. He says, how can banks kill yield? Nobody will hold stable coins because of no yield. How will they absorb the reverse carry trade? So the banks using the stable coins don't give two poops or one poop really about retail holding their stable coin. They are using it for intra-bank settlement. So between all their different branches on their own ledger to be able to settle those transactions between accounts, whether that's money markets or other things, deploy that. They could deploy that themselves into other stuff now to be able to generate returns. And they're still going to get the money off the yield from the treasuries that they're using to be able to create those stable coins. Stable coins really aren't meant for retail. That's been the first use case because of USDC. Even ROUSD, not really meant for retail. It's more for enterprises and institutions to be able to settle and participate in money markets and other things that Ripple's working on and to work with G Treasury. Not for retail. So tokenized deposits is what I think is going to end up being the main thing for retail. And they can absolutely pay you a yield on tokenized deposits. They will absolutely issue stable coins because it benefits them. They'll be getting the yield and they'll be able to use that for intra-bank settlement, not inter. Inter will be XRP, but intra, JP Morgan has branches all over the world. And they would love to be able to settle in their own infrastructure real time between all those counterparties and different accounts. So that's what those stable coins are for. That's what the banks are going to issue them for. They don't care if retail holds them. PayPal, a little bit different. Google, a little bit different. Meta, a little bit different. They might be issuing stable coins for peer-to-peer payments because they have wallets that have huge distribution and scale across cell phones. So, for them, the stable coins that they're going to issue, people are going to hold those and they might be able to pay them rewards, airline miles and other stuff for, participating in those ecosystems. You can still pay people things that might not necessarily be yield on that and incentivize people to participate in a certain ecosystem. But again, I think tokenized deposits are going to be the way that most of this goes. Tokenized deposits can pay returns to the end user with no issues. And they can use that cash from those tokenized deposits to go purchase treasuries and mint stable coins that they can then use in their own infrastructure to settle and also put to work in other means to be able to generate additional returns on top of the treasury note that they're getting. So again, this is a way for banks to stack yield for themselves. They don't care if retail participates in that ecosystem or not. They just don't want deposits leaving their bank is really what it comes down to. And that's the opportunity over there for the other fintechs that are going to be issuing stable coins for retail. I always butcher this gentleman's name, but he's always nice enough to put a super chat on here. He says, "Hey Jake, hope you and your family are doing well, bro." We are, dude. Thank you. Same to you and your family. How are you feeling about XRP in the future after stablecoin news? I'm as bullish as I've ever been, probably more bullish than I've ever been sitting here today. Are you still positive on the domino theory? Yep. Still extremely confident that I am all over the target on that playing out. Bank of Japan haven't hiked anything yet. Thanks, bro. God bless. I think that they were, again, waiting on us to finalize, the yield on the stable coin and work that out so that the banks would be able to roll that out at a moment's notice when they need to. Truth of Hearts, KT Baby, she says, seems like David Schwartz getting out every time something explodes. Can you tell him to get out of XRP? Love your story. God is good. God is good. Yeah, there have absolutely been some times that David has missed out on stuff. But I don't think he's going to miss. So his motto is "Don't miss the next Ethereum." I think Flare could sit in that spot, and I think XRP will too. DFW Mike again, my dude. He says, "Beyond broke, billionaire boss man." I really cannot wait to be able to invest in XRP. We already have the funds over there at Digital Wealth Partners. Some of the funds I can't talk about on here because they're only offered to clients over there, and I can't talk about returns. I wish I could talk about those. Performance on those haven't been as great. The original income fund that we, still have a few spots for, has performed decent, 5% over the last year. So we'll get the final numbers on that at the end of this month. Will be 1 year since we launched those products. We were first to market with any way to generate return on your XRP that wasn't sketchy. We already did this one for Mr. Shook. Maybe I've got through all of them. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and grab a couple more super chats before we wrap it up tonight. You guys do pretty good about cutting them off there at 10 o'clock, which I appreciate. We got one SEC ETF, March 27th deadline. So question one, SEC deadline for a bunch of different ETFs is March 27th. So we have a few days here until, I do think that those are going to get approved. That is going to cause a huge rotation of liquidity. And I do think that they need those to come through. You got Franklin Templeton, you've got 21 shares, you got many others for the XRP ETF, and then many other crypto ETFs as well. I think they're all going to get approved there at the deadline, which will be a big, big deal. And probably, again, cause a rotation of liquidity into crypto. Second question is new floor post-price appreciation. It depends on what they're using it for. If it's just for international settlement with SWIFT and the FX market, 3 digits. If it's for the back-end settlement of the stock market, like I think it will be, I think that the minimum will be 4 digits plus. And last question, uphold bank features, minimum charges. So there will be a monthly charge on our app. We just have hard cost, because of that. We've negotiated those down as much as we can. I think it'll be like $25 a month or something. Similar to having like a high-end bank account, basically. If you hold minimum balances or do some different stuff, we'll try to figure out ways to be able to offset that so we don't have to charge people. But that's what it currently is going to be at. There will be an upfront cost or a setup fee. If you pay for an LLC, it's covered in that. Corporate veil, and I think we're not calling it corporate veil anymore. We'll probably call it corporate shield is what we're going to be providing on our side at Digital Ascension Group instead of Laughlin. So the corporate shield, everything else that you'd expect, that we've been providing for the LLC. If you want a trust, we can do that also. Living trust that's revocable. We're also going to have a very high tier. So, for those that want more family office type services, the highest tier is going to be, I don't remember if it was $22,000 or $25,000, but that comes with an irrevocable trust, a full estate plan, everything end to end that we provide, the whole estate setup, and then $1,000 a month gets you bill pay and accounting alongside all the other features and stuff that we provide. So that'll be the high end deal. But for most people, I think that they'll probably just do the mid tier deal, which would be the corporate veil or the corporate shield, along with the other services that we're providing. It'd be like $150 a month, and that covers your $25 fee, right? It's not an additional $25. And then, but if you just wanted the Uphold account to be able to get lower trading fees and have, your business account there, it'd be like $25 a month. And then I will say this, if you want to go ahead and set up the LLC, we would love to work with you on that. Here's the code for that. Living Legacy has been nice enough to post it. It's 50 off, 50 OFF DAG LLC. That's 50 OFF DAG LLC at digitalfamilyoffice.io. You can go ahead and do that. We will set it up for you. You will still be enrolled in the corporate shield and all this stuff. And you'll get a code to be able to download the app and subscribe to all those services. We're also going to offer an email and domain. So if you want to set up an email and just a landing page for your company, we have a lot of people that use their Gmail or their Hotmail or whatever, their personal email. We would streamline communications for you through that other email. You'd have IT support and all of that. So if that interests you, you can reach out to our team after we launch the app, and we'll be able to provide that as a separate service. We already did that one. And we'll continue to bring out products and solutions. If there's anything that you guys would, is not in the market that you guys think would be great, if there was something this is our way to democratize access to the services that we're providing at scale. Over time, we will merge Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group, the app, into one portal where you're able to see all your Anchorage accounts and everything else. Right now, all that's separate. That'll take 3 to 6 months to be able to, push all that together. And hopefully we'll have one unified UI where if you're holding assets at, inside that app at Uphold or at Anchorage or at Fidelity or with any of the other exchanges out there, we want to be able to aggregate that into one view, be able to execute trades, TWAP, VWAP, options, straddles, advisory, the other products and solutions we're bringing to market for yield or returns, DeFi, all there in one seamless application. And then we also may have models where you can say, hey, this meets my risk tolerance, this meets my time horizon, it meets my cash flow needs. And we have, certain models that you can make an allocation to that'll diversify your XRP across that. And it'll all stay right there in your account. That's the end game for us, is we have an SMA model where we're able to delegate that liquidity to the different opportunities that we have in the market, and your assets stay inside institutional custody insured, where they're safe. Silas says, hey, Jake, thoughts on why XRP, the only cryptocurrency with price glitches? There's been some other ones that have had price glitches. I remember one time in 2021, maybe it was late 2020, Coinbase had a glitch where everything was crazy prices. I remember my account at Coin, because I had some XRP on there at the time, was at like $1.3 trillion. You couldn't trade it though. They wouldn't let you execute. I was trying to sell. That was back in 2020. So anyway, I'm with you. It's a little odd to me that is, I think it's the one that people watch for too, though. I'm sure that there's other assets out there that have had glitches on platforms. I think it's just XRP that people are hyping up and want to watch the glitches for. Lake says, what if we already paid the $1,000 for law fund services? So we will maintain all of that. If you prepaid for everything, there will be a way to waive fees on the app for whatever duration until your next annual renewal. And we'll have an option to be able to pay those up front for other people that don't necessarily want the monthly payment. You can, and it'll actually save you 2 months worth. If we're doing $100 a month or $150 a month, what's that end up being? If it's $100 a month, it'd be $1,200. Yeah. And if it was the other, it would be like $1,750. I'd be like $1,500. Well, take that back. It'd be $1,800 if it's $150. It'd be $1,500, for the one-time payment if you want to do it that way to save some money. But if you've already paid, you'll receive a code, and you won't have fees until the renewals passed. Annie Black says, USDT, how you feel about Heinz audit? He sent there to uncover the truth, or you think he will have it fixed before Clarity Act? Carbon One, appreciate you. Appreciate you, man. It's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to take a while to audit Tether. They're a very large company, like the most profitable company in the world per capita. So I would expect that a traditional audit would take about 6 months to really go through. Because they have so much of their infrastructure on chain, it might take less time. But we'll just have to see how many subsidiaries they have and what the structure is, and what their actual assets on their balance sheet are. All right, I think I got through all of them. If I missed your super chat, again, sorry about that. If you want to just send that in to info@digitalfamilyoffice or info@beyondbroke.com, our team will get them over. Living Legacy says, like, subscribe, share if you're getting value from this. It does help the channel and the algorithm. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with us. If you have at least $100,000 in digital assets and you want a financial advisor, you want institutional custody, you want access to yield and returns and all the fun stuff that we're working on over there at Digital Wealth Partners, you can go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form, fill that out. Our advisor will reach out and talk to you. If you pay the onboarding fee, you get a free consult. It's not a big deal. And then, you get all the benefits there. Ideally, if you have at least $50,000 to $80,000 in total portfolio value, you might want to look at structuring an LLC. You don't have to use us. I have many videos out there that talk about all the different things you need to consider when setting up an LLC and how to do it correctly. But if you want to just use us and pay the $2,000, we would love to work with you to do that. You go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAG-LLC. That's 50OFFDAG-LLC. And then last but not least, if you want to join the mastermind, you want to learn more, you're like, it's pretty high ticket. I don't have the money for that, but I want to learn more about what you guys are doing and be involved. That's what the mastermind's for. We have more in real life events than any other community in crypto, probably aside from Crypto Mondays. Shout out to Lou. And we do private deals there. We do financial education, business resources, and you have community, right? There's a ton of small breakout events that are in all over the US at this point and the world, where people get together. They're like-minded, that have an allocation to digital assets. And, you get to meet cool people before your life changes. And I think that's important. So if that sounds cool, again, beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1. And then MO, like Mary Oscar, each of the first month for $2. No contract. No, it's just month to month. We have over 16,000 people that have continued to stay there because of the value we provide in that group. And thank you again for taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me. I hope you'll have a wonderful week. Hopefully we get some action in the market, and we'll see you guys next Monday. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.